Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Coffee Breaks with ABP. I'm Mark Cooper, the Operations Director at ABP School of Automation, and I'm joined with a couple of my colleagues, Julie and Yulia. Yulia, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Yeah, sure. My name is Yulia Ladon, and I'm the Commercial Director at the ABP School of Automation.
Great, thanks, Yulia. And Julie?
Yeah, I'm Julie Scott. I'm the Training and Development Manager here at the ABP School of Automation.
Great. And I suppose, firstly, it's our first chat in the ABP Coffee Breaks. So again, what's the purpose of this? Just a chance for us to catch up and probably share with an audience across social media a little bit more about the School of Automation and what we do, and I suppose what goes on behind the scenes a little bit. And we'll cover a couple of topics. I suppose we're going to maybe focus today on sort of what we do, government-funded training, and a couple of other things in between. Firstly, I'll start with the School of Automation, just as a recap for anyone that maybe is watching that doesn't know us, who we are and what we do, I suppose. So, School of Automation, we are the training and education arm of ABP Global, the global group. And I suppose we sort of class ourselves in two main services, right, and two sort of functions within the training and education space. At ABP, we are an AI and automation provider. In the school, we focus primarily on training and education. And there's two services and strands to that. One is professional and commercial training for any clients, employers looking to upskill and reskill their teams. So that's one service offer we do. And then we have a career pathways offering for people who are either starting a career, maybe changing a career, and they're looking for help and support to get the right training, the right support, and sort of go on a journey and a pathway to get the right skills and enter employment and enter the sort of workforce within AI and automation. So there's various courses that we run. I suppose if I can maybe elaborate on that a little bit, at the school, we're based in Scotland, England, across the UK and Ireland also. And we have different contracts with either local government or skills bodies to provide that training to people. I suppose it probably brings me on to my next point, and sort of a talking point, or probably first talking point of today, which is the different models of delivery within our government-funded contracts. They look very different, I suppose, and why is that? It really stems from the funding body. So we work in Scotland with Skills Development Scotland. In England, it's Department for Education, and in Ireland, it's Education Training Board, which is Limerick and Clare there. And there's different nuances, I suppose, in terms of our offering in each geography. In England, I suppose, we have a 12-week foundation course that takes learners from sort of beginning through to a sort of level of competency that they can then go forward for interviews and then enter the workforce as junior developers. The same in Scotland. And then in Ireland, we have a slightly different model, which is an extended model, which starts from a 12-week foundation course and actually progresses to a 12-month traineeship, which then involves some client work experience and probably a much more well-rounded programme there in terms of taking someone from a starting point right through to actually work experience and actually entering the sector as a developer. So I suppose, look, I'll stop there for a second, maybe bring in Julie, Yulia, and just get your probably thoughts on the different models. Let's speak about the different models we have so that maybe people watching maybe understand a little bit better, and we can sort of discuss the pros and cons of that we see.
Yeah, I'll start, Yulia. What I've encountered with being the training development manager, I'm quite hands-on with the students throughout their training. And what we find at the 12-week training in England, they are leaving this course and then trying to find a job and for a junior developer, where when it's a traineeship for the island where it's a year, they're getting work experience within that year, developing more and more projects, and they've got a better chance of getting kept on by that client. So most of the students, their comments, and I'll probably cover this later as well, they don't feel it's long enough. So the difference in England and Ireland there within the trainees and the students is quite big, I would say.
Okay, so I think the point you're making, Jules, is the difference between England and Ireland courses. Some of the feedback you're getting is the England courses, probably let's call them UK courses, aren't long enough. Okay, that's quite interesting. I've got my own thoughts on that, but maybe Yulia, I'll bring you in for a second, just to get your thoughts initially on the models.
Yeah, sure, of course. I would say from the client perspective, considering the funded courses that we have, the programs that we have at the moment, we see really good engagement, I would say, from both Ireland and UK side. However, there is a big difference in terms of the commitment that is required for the professional trainings that are funded. And we see that in UK, we have a longer commitment in terms of the duration. So we're talking about 12-week program. And that is actually a quite extensive program. And the requirement for the working people is I would say is very high, because they have to juggle both the daily job as well as the training on a daily basis. And this is, although it is all really engaging, and we had a lot of exciting and great comments from customers and those who were on those programs, in the way they learn, in the way how handy the courses are, how quickly they actually can apply those topics, knowledge that they've gained within the courses in their real lives and their real projects at their workplaces. But juggling actually both the work and the learning is quite difficult and challenging, I would say, for them over those 12 weeks for the funded course. Whereas in Ireland, there is a difference of flexibility, I would say, in the duration of the trainings, because that is more tailored to specific customer needs. And that's why it is more bespoke to a client. And we see, again, better fit maybe to their timetables, because this is one single customer actually. Engagement is high as well as it is easier than to juggle both the expectations as well as the daily jobs and the training and the learning. So I would say the outputs of both models, they really bring high experience, high engagement, a lot of learning. However, we see that there might be higher level of dropouts within the courses in UK, I would say, whereas in Ireland, it is usually because of the shorter durations, the participation is much higher, but the level of engagement is still, it depends on the courses and everyone's kind of expectation of what they want to learn and how quickly they want to apply that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I'll probably going to get to that just in a little bit, just a bit in terms of the dropout rates and what we're actually seeing from both models. But I suppose something maybe to discuss right now is if we go back to the start, I suppose myself having the experience of when the school started, looking at our program curriculum for automation, why did we come up with 12 weeks? And I suppose we ask ourselves that a little bit, and maybe just to share Why did we decide a 12-week course? Why not a 4-week course? Why not 8, 12, whatever, right? I suppose, why do we lock in 12 weeks? And I suppose maybe to get your thoughts, and let's discuss a little bit about what is it we're trying to achieve, right? I think that's a question maybe to think about. Because I suppose if we just take automation and we're aware of the sort of technology, we know what's involved in it. What's the end goal? What are we trying to do? We're trying to get someone that maybe, let's say the majority of the time that we experience is a lot of learners and students that come on our course, they've got very little knowledge of the actual software tool itself, right? And how long does it take them, and what's the end goal? We're trying to get them to a level of competency that they can go and work for a client and add value almost straight away, right? And they can take part and start building automations. So how long is that? Is the biggest question. And at the time, when we set up our curriculum, we said 12 weeks to get them to point B, I suppose. And I suppose that's if you think about that, it is very different for each learner, isn't it? It's like, Julie, we see the different learners and students that come on our programme, and where do these learners come from? Some of them come from a background of maybe straight from school. We've had examples of that, straight out of school, and they're trying to find a career, right? So maybe as young as I think the youngest is maybe 16-year-old, 17. Yeah. And actually then, let's go to the opposite end of that. We've had people career changing, had a whole many different jobs in their careers, and they actually want to now turn their hand to automation, learn this, and get a job and career there. So if you think about learning needs to look different, and it probably does look different for different people, doesn't it? Depending on their background, their experience, prior learning, anything like that, to get them to the point where we need them to be. So what's maybe for Julie then, like what are you seeing in terms of the people coming onto the programme, in terms of backgrounds and I suppose what's right?
Yeah, there's a big mix, Mark, of like backgrounds that we're seeing coming through. We've got people that are software developers, but they have never touched this software. Mm-hmm. We've got people who've never done coding or any other language, and they'll start off with Python. And they're like, wow, I've always wanted to learn a bit of that. We have got big backgrounds, and it really works. So we have a mix. We've got people who are really experienced and people with no experience at all, and they mix well because the way the class is, the way the tutor is, the trainer, there's a lot of communication within it, a lot of interaction. So it really helps with it, with the background. I won't touch on the next bit. I'll wait. We're talking about dropout and the reasons I think that the main dropout would be. But yeah, there's a big mix in all different types of students that come on the course, but they interact really well together the way the course is structured.
Yeah, so we're just highlighting the different learners, I suppose, that come onto our programmes and find their way on our programmes as we're recruiting, and we could recruit in many different ways. But I suppose trying to tailor a curriculum suitable for a vast amount of different learners at different stages of their lives, experience, etc. It's not always easy, I suppose. And I suppose at the school we decided that 12-week period was long enough to get them to a starting point, I suppose, and get those foundations sort of bedded in, I suppose, in terms of the automation technology that we're teaching. I think for that as well, something to discuss is
Mark, I would also add a comment pretty much supporting, again, the similar approach and what we also see among the customers. When we look at the programs where we have the customers put in their teams for upskilling and reskilling, right? So again, here we see really a big difference in the audience as well. So from those could be the people that just came from a different maybe department, and they're just keen to learn about new technologies like RPA, AI, and then so on. So they would have pretty much either zero or just very minimum knowledge about those technologies and how to use the tools and then so on. As well as those could be people who already have some knowledge or some experience within the organization, and they want to actually upskill themselves, but they are lacking maybe some foundational topics. And that's why they would like to actually learn more standardized approach, best practices, some frameworks, so that they actually can have the solid foundation necessary for the Center of Excellence for their organizations. But at the same time, I would say what is different between, although it could be a 12-week program for the customers, the curriculum actually is, again, tailored to what the needs are for that specific customer, right? So, and then it could be those topics starting from process identification to automation itself, then to orchestration, to looking into more advanced tooling and application of those, AI, governance, and then so on and so forth. So that's why also the engagement levels would be high in those groups, I would say, because the topics are not just the overall kind of informative sessions, where you just hear about some new stuff and the following day it is up to you whether you apply those or not. But the courses are structured in the way that you learn the topic, you actually have the foundations and you know how to apply. So it's informative plus the practical actually sessions related to the actual projects that that specific customer has on their site, I would say. So that's why it is more relevant, and I would say from the kind of engagement as well point of view, although the levels of attendees would be different, but their knowledge is again very vast and different from each other, and that's why the collaboration in the group would be really supportive. And everyone kind of puts their something from themselves, right? So that, you know, they contribute to overall kind of success of the group, and they also think how to move forward after the learning is done, and how they actually would be progressing in their organization after the learning.
A lot of those students, Julia, that have come from on the upskilling program, a lot of the students have tried to teach themselves online, and with their job, and they've struggled. So now when they come to our course, it's tutor-led, and they can use what they're learning on a project that they're actually working on. It's second to none, the feedback we're getting, you know. It just works. It works for them.
Yeah, it is a really valid point, I would say, and they're really great, actually. And thanks for really highlighting that, because we have same comments and feedbacks from the customer groups as well, where the tutor-led actually sessions that they have are so useful, because they can ask questions on the fly, they can have the answers right away, they can practice there. Everyone kind of gets the immediate attention of the tutor in terms of where they struggle or they stuck, or how to do or how to improve things that they're working on. And this is a collaborative real-time session, and that's why, you know, that's really we have a lot of great feedbacks about the type of the sessions that we have. So yeah, totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think the both of you make a good point there, and it's quite an important point. Even at the School of Automation, our courses are all delivered online remotely. But I think you bring a good point to say that it's tutor-led, because what you look at the training market and education market, there is so much online content across multiple different platforms and vendors, and it's, you know, there's so much out there that's actually quite confusing and quite hard pick what pathway you should go down and what you should learn. But I suppose one of the things that we do at the school is guided learning with a tutor that's dedicated to you, your team. I think that's huge actually for learners. And it'd be good to get your thoughts a little bit more on that. Can I pick up on that just a little bit more, both of you? The difference between, let's say, a learner wanting to, let's say, learn an automation tool and going online and doing it yourself, right? To maybe something like joining one of our courses, where one of our experienced tutors actually goes through it in modules and bite-sized chunks and takes you through it. For me, I think the difference there is huge, and the benefits are huge. Again, it's my opinion, but for someone to learn on their own, just the theory to then guided learning, I think there's a real big difference. I suppose some people do ask, like, what's the difference between online learning and just doing it myself to actually joining the School of Automation and undertaking one of these courses? And I think the biggest thing is tutor-led, getting the knowledge and the experience and the expertise and being able to talk to someone on a daily basis. Let's pick up that just a little bit. Give me your thought, just maybe your opinion, I suppose, just on the importance of that between online and tutor-led. Maybe just a comment from each of you.
Yeah, when before the course starts, we do suitability questionnaires. They're in work full time. That they're already starting to use some of this software. They've been told to go online, do the course. And within a week or two of starting this course, and the collaboration from other people, because it doesn't mean like all our people are from one company and one office. They're not. They're from all over the place, and some of them have done a little bit more than the others. But the minute they've started this training, within I'd say up to 3 or 4 weeks, they can see the difference on what they've learned, different to what they tried to learn online, and the motivation to learn on just attending online and teaching themselves as they're going along after work. It was so hard, but with the tutor-led, and the collaboration with everybody in the group, it makes a difference. And then they go away what they've learned. They can ask questions. They can ask the tutor questions on their own or within the class on bits that they're working on. So it's support as well.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. You know what? When Julie was talking about the experience from the students, I thought also about even our own experience when we try to learn something online, right? So after that, we would definitely go and try to find either forums or groups where we want to actually confirm some of our knowledge, right? Because when it's just an online course with no any tutor that can help you, you actually may learn something incorrectly or assume something. And then it is a case of maybe taking longer time to verify stuff, to make sure you're actually learning a correct way. Whereas the instructor-led sessions, this is very practical and very quick, because this is always, there is a person who already has a really great experience, industry knowledge, who can on the fly answer any of your question. Also point to anything that seem not to be correct while you're doing the practical, for example, exercise, or can even ask you questions. Why did you decide to do this way but not the other? Or ask the questions like, how would you improve, right? Whatever the task you are trying to achieve, for example. And this also leads to an additional thinking of the learners, as well as thinking about different creative ways and application maybe of different tools, and some other topics in conjunction with what they've already learned. And I think this is definitely more valuable, much more valuable in terms of the learning as well as the overall experience, and the practical application of what you've learned just right away, because usually we'll learn much better when we actually apply our knowledge. when you actually sit and do something, press on those buttons, see how your flow works when you done something in, let's say, in the any vendor studio, whatever the environment is. So definitely Instructaland has more benefits over the usual online training.
Some of them have took the best practice away and changed like the reframework and things on our best practice. They've changed it from what they were using. So
yeah, and over time, I would say, you know, because technologies change so fast, right? Even versions of the same technologies and so on. So you could have some of the knowledge that is outdated already, and with the instructor, you definitely have the fresh, up-to-date information, right? So that's also something that immediately you don't need to maybe search for a long time and trying to understand actually what is the new stuff here. An instructor can actually quickly show you and explain, actually, this is the new way, and you can learn much faster.
Yeah, I think it's an important point to say, isn't it? And that's our choice, to be tutor-led with all our courses. I think the pros and advantages just totally outweigh just giving someone an online learning and click on this link and just follow through. I just think the opportunity to learn collaboratively with other people and learn from each other is, it's definitely shown in our results anyway, in our sort of student feedback, that it's really worthwhile, particularly from a learning standpoint. So no, I thought that was quite important just to pull out there about our courses. One of the topics, if I just move on slightly to the government funded training, I suppose at the school, all our courses, particularly for the career pathways, right, just to say this, is it's free of charge. I say free of charge, it's fully funded, right? Someone's paying for it, and it tends to be when we work with government. So it could be Skills Development Scotland, it could be Department of Education for Education in UK, or the Education Training Boards in Ireland. They fund our courses, and one of the I suppose tasks, particularly for myself, with the help of you guys, is we tender for some of these opportunities. They're not just, freely given to us. You've got to go through a tendering process. You've got to state and obviously work within the parameters of some of these contracts. And I suppose that's one of the things just to maybe highlight and talk a little bit more about is sometimes at the school we could have an opinion of this is what we would like to do in terms of duration, learners, content, all these different things. But unfortunately, sometimes due to the parameters within the contract, we've got to work within that. So I think getting on to the differences between England and Ireland courses, sometimes, particularly like, let's say right now, the course we've got with Department of Education, it's skills boot camps. We are, we've got to start learners, students at a particular time. We've got to complete courses by a particular time. The courses can only run for a certain period in so many weeks and so many like guided learning hours, etc. So there's lots of things behind the scenes that we've got to stick to. And obviously there's slight differences between England and Ireland, and it probably brings me on to if we could maybe talk through some of the pros and cons of that we see. One of the things for me that I'll start off with saying is, in England, some of those students they apply for our courses, they've got to meet some eligibility criteria, and if they do that, then they can come onto the course. But the incentive is obviously to learn the training and hopefully get an interview and secure a job at the end of it, right? That's the end goal that we're trying to achieve. And the same in Ireland, we have the 12-week course, but then it moves on to a traineeship, which is actually going and getting work experience with a client. But in England, I can't offer that because we can only train people for a certain period of time, and then they've got to try and get a job after the 12 weeks. So maybe Julia, get your thoughts on the England course being 12 weeks, learn as much as they possibly can there, and try and then enter as a junior developer entry level role. Give me some of your thoughts around that. And then when you see Ireland, where they complete the 12-week course and then move on to a 12-month traineeship with further support and training, what do you see there in terms of differences between the two students that come from the two different geographies, I suppose?
Yeah, I think it's a really good and important topic as well. And for anyone who is listening, it is really important to understand the differences. And I would say when we look also from the learner perspective, right? So when we look at only 12-week program, the foundation program, which is available in both UK and Ireland, it is quite an intensive program and definitely provides the main knowledge of coding and necessary knowledge for the robotic process automation, as well as some other things that would prepare them for the very beginner role, I would say, in this field, in this new field. However, with this said, the difference between UK and Ireland in terms of the students is definitely the additional work experience that we have in terms of traineeship available in Ireland, which is not available in UK. And what is kind of we also see from the profile of the students, as well as how easily they can fit into their new jobs, I would say, as well as the overall process and the complexity of them to land in one, it is also different. And I would say that also explains that they have in UK, the students would have still limited knowledge. It is just 12-week, and when you assume that this is a totally new career for those, either if it could be a student who just completed the university, let's say a fresh graduate, or even if it's a person who tries to reskill or upskill themselves, 12-week program would still limit them in terms of the experience, the work experience. And this is where the knowledge and the information that were actually gained in 12-week program get into the practical experience. And we also see that the experience within the traineeship not only helps the students to gain the practical knowledge, but as well as it also teaches them how to actually collaborate within different teams, because they start working on a customer project, in real projects at a different customer. Within the traineeship, they can work not on one project, but multiple projects. So they actually see and experience how it is to be working for the client in a real world and a real project, how to collaborate, what actually they need to know, not just in terms of the practical knowledge, but also from the soft skill perspective, how to communicate, how to negotiate, how to deal with internal or external customers, and then so on and so forth. And definitely, and each customer also has their own best practices or frameworks, policies, and then so on. And that's why, as well as technology, from the technology perspective, exposure to very different projects and different teams and different customers helps actually those learners to gain the real world knowledge and experience, which is much, much better, and also prepares them much better for their job rather than, just the graduation from the 12-week course. And finding job, actually, is more complicated than for those 12-week grads. Over the 12-week plus that 1-year traineeship students, we see a very, very high percentage, like I think more over 90% we have of those students who completed both the 12-week program as well as the traineeship, the percentage of their employment. So it is really high, whereas we see much lower, I would say, employment rate in UK, only for those, you know, who completed the 12-week program. And I think this is a lacking piece, actually, that would definitely help much more for those students to experience and embrace this work experience if they have this opportunity.
Yeah, just one point to pull out there is just maybe you touched on a little bit that I think is really important as well for people to know is those professional skills, because I think we talk about technology and we're trying to prepare people to enter the job market or automation job, but it's not just only about the technology, is it? And I think those professional skills, and that's what the traineeship and that longer period of time allows us to have and give them the experience and enter that. And I know, Julie, you work with the students on those professional skills. So we've got technical team working on the software and all the technical skills, but you spend a lot of time with the students working in those professional skills that Julie has just touched on there is so important. It's not about going to a client and just being able to use the software. That's one part. But how do you conduct yourself, present yourself, and all the things that go around that? Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that and let us know what you're sort of seeing from students?
Yeah, we do professional skills once a week, and we teach them from writing an email, presenting a presentation, attending calls, what they wear and when they're on the call, having the cameras on, bringing them out of themselves. We cover quite a lot of things on that. We had one person that couldn't it's not just one person, actually, couldn't really write an email, didn't know how to use a spell check, didn't know how to format an email, another person didn't know how to use like the whole of Windows, Word, Excel, Windows. So we cover all of that within the 12 weeks, and then we get them to email us and present us, and they get feedback not only from myself and the trainer, they get it from their peers also. So it's quite good, and a lot of our feedback when we've had it has that they've really enjoyed the professional skills because it's helped to bring them out of themselves.
Yeah, I think that's one thing we've learned, isn't it, as a team, is let's never make assumptions that you think someone knows how to do something. Exactly. And it could be the smallest thing, right, from sending a professional email, right? Maybe you're sending an email to a client, or passing information, communicating. Yeah, to go over that with them and just set some standards that we think are appropriate for the sector. And it would amaze you what people think is acceptable and not acceptable. Particularly in a world of online working remotely, particularly as developers, right?
Exactly.
Dare I say, a lot of bad habits have creeped in for a lot of different people.
I know. Yeah, about a student come on, Mark, sitting there smoking a vape with his camera on.
Jeez, yeah.
It's like, no, you don't do that. If you were with a client, would you do that?
Exactly.
Come on with your dressing gown on. No, be smart. Yeah. So yeah.
I suppose, yeah. For you, you've got the job of, on a daily basis, ensuring all of these good practices are embedded in, speaking to students about, what's acceptable, what's not, just managing expectations, right? I suppose if you never know and you've never been involved in this, then maybe you just don't know, and someone needs to speak to you and support you and help you along the way. I just thought that's really important to pull out.
Yeah, I would also agree with all of this, especially with the hybrid model of the work that we have nowadays. So it is much easier to warn someone who is new about any dress code when they are in the office, right? Because they see you. But when it's an online environment and you have to be in a customer meeting in 5 minutes, for example, it is not always possible to make sure that the new joiner knows everything and is appropriately dressed, and then knows that the camera should be on and so on. So that's why it is even more important, I would say, in the online type of work that we have, so that any person who joins our trainings as well not only knows how to use the software and the tools and so on, but at the same time knows actually what are the ethical rules, what are the other professional skills that they actually need to have, and so on. And they also learn within their customer projects with the collaboration with different teams about some specific nuances that are valid for those specific customers.
Yeah, it's a good point. And as I said, just to set them up with some good practice, isn't it? And so they can go on and start their career on a good footing, I suppose, and not make any of those or avoid making any of those early sort of mistakes that can often happen. Moving on, just the last couple of points, I suppose, and we'll sort of bring this to a close, is one of the things, and Julia, you touched on some of the stats there, and some of our stats this year for England particularly, so all the learners who started our course in England and who completed, we're sitting at about an 80% completion rate, right, from those who start and those who finish this year. But the difference in Ireland is those who start and complete at the end of that 12-week period is 97%, right? So there's quite a difference. And I suppose when we meet as a team and speak about that, because we're always ensuring we want everyone who starts to get to the end and complete, gain their certificates, gain their experience. And some of the differences I'm seeing, and one of the things that we've spoke about, Julie, earlier was in England, those people, the course is fully funded, so in a sense for them it's free to come onto the training, and obviously we want to keep them engaged to complete. In Ireland, they're actually giving a training allowance. It works slightly differently, and we know in Ireland that they're really quite strict on, like, if someone misses training, then their training allowance is affected, which tends to mean that it incentivizes the student to ensure that they're in training, they're on calls, they're doing everything that we're sort of asking of them, because it actually affects their allowance that they get. They get paid an allowance each week for being on the training course. And I think when we look at both programs, where England that's not available, but in Ireland it is, and then we look at our completion rates at the end of that, there's quite a stark difference there. And I think that's one of the things that we've spoke about recently.
Yeah.
So
I would also bring, Mark, to your point, a bit different angle to the professional trainings, in terms of kind of the completion and some statistics. So when we just look at the professional trainings that are available for customers, for their teams, for upskilling and reskilling, right? So the completion rate is pretty much 100%. Because,
100%.
Yes, because these are courses that have been chosen, and the specific people were selected by the employer to take them on, and they are accountable actually to take the course and to apply practically after the course. So that's why it is usually the 100% with some very kind of unexpected kind of things. Even, it doesn't really matter whether the training is fully paid by the employee or employer, or if it's a co-funded program, I would say it is still there. The motivation already from the beginning, from each learner knowing that this is paid for, or they were selected to be on this training because of their skills, because of maybe a potential job promotion, or maybe broader responsibility that that they would have after they complete the course. So there is definitely a different motivation, I would say, and the outcomes as well from those type of trainings. I mean, from the professional training perspective versus the usual fully funded programs for those who are unemployed.
Yeah, yeah. No, there is a difference. I suppose some of these things are out with our control, and some of the geographies and some of the funding bodies. Just to touch on, when we look at funding for learners across the UK and Ireland, it is actually quite complex when you look at it. When you look at the amount of different funding that's available for various learners, and then how do you access that? You access that. There's various multiple ways that you can do that, and all through a tendering process as well, right? So that's stuff that goes on behind the scenes that we work through and take care of. And I suppose that will continue to change. I suppose one of the biggest things was that last year was even a change in government from Conservative Party in the UK changing to Labour. There was a big shift in the sort of skills landscape. Then there was a big review of the skills system. And then we're starting to see changes now across the UK in terms of skills, how they fund skills, and they're making changes, which actually it's a little bit disruptive from a training provider point of view, because you could have a contract, and you're running through that and you think it's going to run for X amount of years maybe. And when a new government comes in and makes changes, things stop and new things come up and start again. So there's a few different complexities there for us as a training organisation to work through, I suppose. We're no different from any other, but it just gives a little bit of background and insight into when we run career pathways. There's probably a lot behind the scenes that go into that in terms of then what we can offer, whether it's funded, part funded, fully funded. There's lots of different things that we might be able to do, and that will continue, I suppose. So probably my last point is looking ahead, future, just very briefly from both of you then. Obviously, I would say it's not coming, it's already here, the introduction of AI technology. Even what is that doing and what does that mean for automation? We're starting to see that already with some of the vendors in this space, how they're integrating AI into their software. And then what does that mean for us at the school? So maybe a comment from both of you on that, because that means us at the school, we've got to keep our content curriculum all updated with these changes.
Yeah, I can comment from professional training perspective. So definitely we see with the technology trends, we see the trend in the interest and also the request from different customers in terms of the content and the trainings they would like to actually attend. And we see the trend towards exactly to the same point that you've just made. The trend is towards the AI enhanced solutions, which usually would be, covering anything from intelligent document processing, conversational AI, agentic AI, as well as all the other new things that would be applicable, to the automation journeys of those customers. Machine learning, large language models, all of those things are now really in the trend, and at the School of Automation, we definitely pay attention to that, and we revise the content of the trainings pretty much on not just on the annual basis, but actually I would say on the quarterly basis, talking with experts as well as the evangelist of the technology, seeing how different vendors, I would say, improve the things they do, where overall kind of technology goes. And when we look at our catalog, for example, we already have over 20 different professional training courses, and a big chunk of those actually are related to AI and different more advanced technologies that involve machine learning, agentic, and then so on. And we are working constantly on revising those and improving, as well as creating new and adding new trainings as well to our catalog, so that we can provide and be a bit ahead of our customers in terms of the knowledge and the content provision, so that we can prepare their teams actually with all the best practices and all the best available knowledge out there and information, not just from the informative perspective, but also from the practical perspective. So that's one of the most important things that we definitely look into and take into consideration when we design the courses, and whether we launch any new course and what that course is going to be.
Yeah. And Julie, what about from a student perspective? Sometimes I feel like students come out of the course and there is so much to learn. Where do they start? And I suppose maybe from your perspective, when you're speaking to them, what did they see? Is there any sort of overwhelming feeling of the amount they've got to learn? Do they embrace it? Do they feel anxious about it, particularly in the world of AI? What's your sort of take on that?
There's a mix there, Mark. So you've got overwhelmed, you've got anxious, you've got excited, you've got all of the above. When we do the calls to speak to them, we're getting a lot more interest, and it's an exciting part for exciting time here for us at the school. Changing our curriculum in line with what's trending and everything, and they're hearing about it and they're coming to us and they're excited to join the course. So I think this is a good time for us, Mark, because there's a lot of interest, because it's out there.
Yeah. No, I do agree. It's an exciting time.
Yeah.
In the world of AI, and what does that look like? And I suppose no one can really answer that, but I suppose one of the challenges at the school will be always, and it will never go away, is keeping our curriculum and content and training updated, right, to meet the demands of the sector. So wherever technology goes, how do we best prepare people either in work professionally or those even just starting out in a career? One of the jobs at the school will be to make sure that we build a curriculum and content to support various learners at various stages, and that will always be a challenge, and it'll be ongoing. So we look forward to the rest of this year, and we've got some hopefully exciting things to come up for next year. And yeah, we continue on. We work on that, and work with various partners to do that and bring that to fruition. So I suppose lastly from me is just to thank both of you for our first coffee break at ABP Chat. Let's do that again sometime. Yeah, and yeah, let's keep doing what we're doing, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for the chat.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.